Okay, I think we'll make a start. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking about published images from CiteAb this afternoon, so if that's what you were expecting, then you're in the right place. Alicia and Brian, you both good to make a start? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Hopefully everyone can see the three of us on your screens at the moment. Alicia is going to share her screen shortly. Alicia is Senior Product and Business Development Manager here at CiteAb, and she's going to give us an overview of our published images today. Brian has been very kind to join us today. He's the Marketing Director at Novus and is using published images at the moment, and is going to tell us a little bit about his experiences of doing so. We're going to make a start with a short presentation from Alicia, then Brian will speak, and then we'll take any questions. If you want to post any questions that you have either in the chat or using the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen, if you hover over the bottom, you've got a few options there to raise hand. There's a Q&A box. If you ask your questions in there, I will then put them to Alicia and Brian at the end of the presentation. Hopefully we'll be able to give everyone a good overview of published images today, and I will drop into the chat some details of how you can get in touch with Alicia after this session if you have any further questions that you don't want to ask today. Okay, I'm going to hand over to you, Alicia. Are you all right to share your screen?
Should be. Let me give this a go and I hope this works. Right, you should hopefully be able to see my screen.
Yeah, that seems to be working. Thank you.
Fabulous. Uploading, there we go. Great. Thanks, Katrina. So, as mentioned, I'm going to basically give you a quick whistle-stop tour, firstly, of what CiteAb is as a company, in case there's some of you joined today who aren't familiar with us. And then I'll run through just a few slides about our published images services, what it is, how you can use it, and various things like that before I pass over to Brian to do a little talk about how Novus have been using them. So firstly, just starting about what CiteAb is on a whole, it's kind of known for being the reagent search engine for researchers, but behind the scenes to that, we're also world leaders in the provision of high quality market data and citations for suppliers. We started with antibodies, sort of hence the name CiteAb, but we've since delved into sort of biochemicals, kits and assays, instruments, proteins, and experimental models, and we are essentially aiming to continually add to that. Essentially, as long as it's in a publication, there's no reason why we can't add it and collect it as a reagent type on the search engine and also behind the scenes. So our focus is really on identifying these product citations, and we take this unstructured free text and we turn it into this high quality structured data that we can do a lot with. And sort of how do we get this? Well, we combine our proprietary text mining technology with a lot of human reviewing to make sure that the data is sort of as accurate as it can be, because I mean, we display this on our website as well as giving it to you, so we want to make sure it's good as well. So a lot of human verification goes into the data. We've manually checked, I think, millions of citations, as well as just letting the machine learning. So it's a constant feedback loop. And that's how we get all this data, which we both display on CiteAb and also give to suppliers and use in our market data. And we're trusted by researchers all over the globe. We like to say we're a very simple way that researchers can find products that work, by ranking all of our search results by the number of citations that's in the literature. There's no sort of pay to list higher model or anything like that. It's completely unbiased. And this means we're known pretty globally, and we're trusted, I like to think, by researchers everywhere. This map, I think, is probably from 2019, so it may need updating, but it gives a good idea of our users per year. And you can see we're used sort of everywhere. We get about 60,000 users a month from a range of sort of universities, pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies all over the world. We're also used by sort of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies, and there's some sort of name drop universities here as well that use us. So we're getting a lot of views and a lot of searches, which is really great. So this is sort of a very, very condensed way of saying how we can work with suppliers. It sort of splits into four main categories. As I mentioned before, there's no sort of pay to list hire on our search engine, but there are other ways that we can work with suppliers. The first sort of option is listing. So it's promoting your reagents to the hundreds of thousands of researchers who are using us every year, as you saw on the previous slide. And we offer a range of options within this. So you can add sort of request a quote button, a personalized little GIF that sits in the corner. There's many different things you can do that sit on your product pages. The next sort of level of product that we offer is the data. So this is using the citations that we generate allows us to generate quite good insights into the market. And this is used by businesses to basically make more informed decisions. You can use them in things like your product pipeline development, benchmarking against competitors, things like that. The next one being citations. So the citations that we collect and we display on CiteAb, you can also display on your own website, which really helps to generate sales by giving real world examples of how you're being used in the literature. And the published images, I like to think of it as sort of an extra layer of complex information on top of that. And not only do they have the citation there, they can also actually see the image from the publication itself and really get a hands-on view of what was done in the paper, what the results looked like. There's going to be many sort of nice images throughout this presentation too. So here's one on the right as well, which is one of our published images. So that was sort of a very, very condensed view of what CiteAb is as a company. Obviously, if you have any questions, please just drop us an email. We'd be happy to talk more about it. But let's move on to why you're all here, which is to talk about the images. And I wanted to just start with, why even display them? What's the point? It's probably quite obvious, but they're a really fantastic way to drive sales because they allow your customers to view real examples of the products being used, and it's in a way that other researchers have generated these images, right? So they're a really important trust marker between the supplier and the researcher. They also provide a really good information source, which can be used by your support teams and by customers to give a full understanding of how your products are being used. So in terms of what they look like, what we've tried to do here, and it took us some time to work on this because we really wanted to get it right. There's a lot of things that could have gone wrong here, but we take the base image. So as you can see on the left, it's this full image. It's got, I think, 4 panels in there. There's a lot of information going on. There's probably 3 different applications in there. The antibody of interest has only been used in one of those panels. So we take all the images and we crop them down to the specific panel of interest. And this allows researchers and people looking at the images to straight away identify exactly where the antibody has been used. So the image they would see is this one on the right here, and you can see straight away that was used in immunohistochemistry. You don't have to sort of delve into all these panels and think, was it a Western blot? Was it something else? It's straight there. So all of our images are cropped down to the panel of interest. So that gives a general idea of what they look like. And you can see the examples in this presentation as well. They're all cropped down to cut out all the other stuff in there. So in terms of what information we provide, essentially, we give you all the information that you would need. And obviously, we give you the published image, but we also give you extra information such as the SKU of the antibody that's been used, the application, the reactant, and all of the reference information that you would need to reference it properly when you're displaying it. So this allows to be really custom with how you're choosing to display them, and you can sort of integrate them into your current tech. So on the right here is sort of a mock-up of how you could display them. This is quite similar to how we display them on CiteAb if you click to expand them out. So we've got the code, the product name, the company, title, journal information, all of that kind of stuff, the figure number, the letter, panel letter, the image itself, which is obviously very important, and then the application and reactant as well. And this allows the researcher to look at this and be like, okay, here's the antibody that we're looking at, this PC1-3 antibody. I can see it was used in an immunocytochemistry in a rat. And it really allows to give that snapshot of information. We can also deliver them in many different ways, which again depends on really what you want. We can use an API, we've got a widget, we've got user interfaces. So we can really be very flexible on this. So how can you use them? I think in summary, it's however you want, because we essentially just give you all the tools that you need to then manipulate and put them wherever you like. So some of our ideas is the kind of most common way is to pop them onto your product pages, and this works really nicely in a carousel, and I'll show some examples of this, I think, in the next couple of slides. You can integrate them with your existing internal validations as well. And because we give you all the extra information on the applications and reactants, it allows researchers to go onto this carousel and they can filter down into the application and the reactant that they're looking for, and they'll get the exact image that they want. So it can be highly, highly relevant imagery, and it's broader than possible with just showing your in-house validation images. You can also just select a few that really display the product well and add them to your product sheets, alongside any other relevant experimental information. One that we like to do is to share them on social media channels. Obviously, a lot of them, especially your immunofluorescence images, are very attractive. So you can take them and you can pop them on. We like to put them on the CiteAb Instagram, the Twitter pages, and they really add a nice touch to, share real research that's being done. Another way is your tech support teams can signpost customers to the images of the antibodies being used with the exact experimental details that the researcher is looking for. So it helps give them an actual example of the results that they might be looking to expect from the literature. So finally, let's just look at some images in action. So these are just some very rudimentary screenshots from some of our clients, just to show how they look on the product pages. So first up is Novus. So this is just a little screenshot of how Novus have popped them on their pages. You can see they've got this image on the left that's integrated with all of the rest of their images that they've collected with the referencing information below. And there's the option to enlarge it out into a big image, and it's got all the information there, which I think is one of the screenshots that Brian's got to look at. But you can see it sort of blends in very nicely with the product pages, which is what we want. It's not so in your face CiteAb branding everywhere, because that wouldn't look very nice. So the next sort of example is from Antibodies Online, which both sell own products and are a distributor. So they're using it for multiple different companies, not just the Antibodies Online products. They're using it in quite a similar way. Obviously, it's a slightly different format, but they've got the sort of carousel option where they've added filters into for the application and reactant information. And then last up, we've got Progen, who have put the images very large on their page, which is great. And they've also gone with the sort of carousel, blending in with their own internal validation. You can see it's got the image collected and cropped for CiteAb, and they just sit on the left in that carousel. And so that's kind of it from me in terms of a very whistle-stop tour of the images. So I think now we will pass over to Brian, who's got a couple of slides. And Brian's from Novus, as Katrina mentioned, who are one of our lovely clients who have been using images, I think, for around a year now. I might be wrong on that, but it's about that sign of time. So I'm going to mute myself and let Brian go for it.
All right. Thanks, Alicia. You can hear me okay? Awesome. So yeah, we've been using it actually for about a year and 4 months now. And so, thanks for all the previous slides. Those really kind of showed some of the different options and values that we had there. We use it, so CiteAb obviously curates all the images themselves. And if you want to go to my first slide, we use it to actually review the images that CiteAb has found, and then we'll add those manually after they're reviewed by either some level of scientists to see if they'll add value to what we already have, or if they have a new species and application. This is just a quick screenshot of what you see on the CiteAb interface, I guess is the best way to put it. And you can, from here, actually drill down to the application or the species there to find a particular type of image you might be looking for, say rat in IHC or something like that, as well as all the PubMed IDs. And then, from there, it's just a matter of adding it manually to our data sheet, which is the next slide. And this is just a blow up of the screenshot of the image that Alicia showed earlier, or the type of image. So we were able to use a light box to increase the size of the image for better viewing by the scientists. And this is just an example. You can see at the bottom, it's a little bit cut off on my screen, but it has the all the information from the image caption that is relevant to this specific image. And then we just mentioned that it's collected and cropped by CiteAb, and then we list the publication so that scientists can go back and view that closer. It's been very easy to use. It's been very user friendly. We always have quick turnaround time from Alicia and other people at CiteAb, and in all honesty, we had to renew it this year, and so one of my jobs was to go in and collect return on investment information and make sure that it made sense to renew it, and so forth. And all indications, I'm not going to give out specific numbers on that, but we renewed. So I think that kind of answers the question on, was the return on investment worth the time and effort put in on our side? And it's been great for the products that we've added it to. It's added a lot of value. In some cases, we're able to get new applications, new species from this that we can mention as being found in this specific publication. And it's just been a great tool, very easy to use by anyone. No instructions really needed on how to do everything. So I think that really covers most everything I would say about it. Definitely open to questions or any comments from that. And yeah, thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you, Alicia, as well, for that overview and giving us some insight into CiteAb's published images. We've had a couple of questions that have come through on the chat and through the Q&A. So to start with, so one here about whether you can select a subset of images to use and how to go about doing that.
Well, I can sort of answer that. I can filter by species and application from the interface that I use. And I think you could do the same thing with the widget, correct, Alicia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as well, you can also, obviously the user interface allows you to search by product code as well. We can also work on, if you have, say, a range of products that's most of interest to you, the higher priority, you can also just send us those products and we can prioritize our queue to try and push those to the front. So we can really be very custom with the service and what you want to use.
Okay, fantastic. Right, and I've also got a question here, which I think will best go to Alicia, about licensing and whether there's a separate licensing fee to use the images on top of the CiteAb fee.
So I do have a little slide on this in my appendix, so let me reshare my screen. Cool. So if I just hop along one of these, okay, yeah. So in terms of licensing, all of the images that we collect and we provide are provided under a CC BY license, which I've linked there, but I won't go through it all basically because it's a lot of tech speak, but it essentially allows for unlimited modification distribution. So that's what allows us to crop them as well. So we essentially make sure that all the licensing is good. It's all included in the price. So you don't have to do anything on your end. Essentially, we give you all the reference information. We just ask that you acknowledge CiteAb and then the reference to the paper and the link to the paper. So we give you this sort of pre-worded text, which you can see is used under all the images examples that I've used here, and link out to the original publication. And the rest of it's covered. Obviously, we display them on our website as well, so we make sure that the licensing is good, because we'll get in trouble too if we mess that part up. So yeah, we're pretty sure that that's all fine.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. One here about whether or not CiteAb specifies a standard dimension or aspect ratio on the images that are distributed.
So we provide them in three. I can't give exact numbers because I don't know them off the top of my head, but we provide the full-sized cropped image, which is just as it is, and we also provide them in three, I think, different sizes. So you can kind of pick whichever one fits best to your wherever you're using it, essentially. So there's a range of options that are given in the API to use.
Thank you. Right, we have one more, which is essentially about the process. How do we go about actually putting images into a supplier website? Is that a manual process, or is that carried out some other way?
So Novus does it manually, but I think you know, if you don't have the bandwidth, it's also supplied as I'll just call it a widget. I don't know if it's JavaScript or whatever, but just insert the code onto your website, right, Alicia?
Yeah, so we can essentially, it's, you know, we can work with whatever you want, really. We can give you sort of the user interface where you can pick and choose manually which ones you want, or you can link it straight up to the API, which allows them to automatically go on your product pages. As Brian mentioned, there's also the option of a widget, which works by a little iframe, which is a very limited tech speak of how it works, but that just pops onto your product pages and it links directly to CiteAb, and that's updated kind of every day with the latest images. So it can be as automated or as manual as you want it to be, essentially.
Fantastic, thank you. Alicia and Brian, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'll start off. So, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, this has been a great value for Novus specifically, and I think that you know, one of the great things about working with CiteAb is the other options, other services that they offer. They're very knowledgeable. They're putting a scientist behind all these images, so everything, you know, about 99% of the images come ready to use right out of the box, and very responsive. Just, you know, easy to work with. I would stop with that. Thank you.
Notice we've had a question come in about costing as well, Alicia. I don't know if maybe we could follow up this session with some details for each of the people who have attended, and chat through any costing details and things like that at that point as well. I know we are running a little short on time now. We want to keep it within the half hour. So is there anything else you wanted to add beyond?
Yeah, with the costing, I can quickly say that it generally, we price it on a massive range, which is dependent on the size of the company. It works on a yearly subscription model. So if anyone's interested in pricing, I can give you a specific quote. We don't just do like a one size fits all price, because then we'll severely overcharge some of the smaller companies and severely undercharge some of the massive companies. So it's very, very custom. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you again, Alicia and Brian. Special thanks to Brian for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do that. We have popped into the chat Alicia's email address. So if anyone has any follow-up questions after this session at any point about published images or any other services from CiteAb, please do drop Alicia a line. She'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. In the chat as well, there's also a link to our published images pages. So if you want to have a look at any other background, then you can do so there. Thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to speak to you soon. Take care.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.